Greetings and salutations. Welcome to this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Before we begin, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share the show with a friend. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. My guest today is a playwright and actress. She is an alumnus of Atlantic Acting School, the summer program at Stella Adler, and has a BFA in musical theater from Nebraska Wesleyan University. She is a founding member of Bluebird Theatre Company and currently serves as director of finance. Plays include Colorado, By Nature Raw and Wild, and multiple virtual one-acts. Her play Significant Contacts opened July 13th and runs through July 16th at the Makerspace in Brooklyn, New York. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Amanda Stamm.
Hi, thank you so much, James. I'm so glad to be here.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming on. Lots of questions that I have, but
can't wait.
My first question is, did you rehearse today?
No, we actually rehearsed last week. I literally just came back from a wedding in Chicago today, like an hour ago.
When, just for the listeners, so they know that by the time this episode drops, you'll have already opened. Are you going to attend any more rehearsals before you open?
Yes. Well, kind of. We have our tech tomorrow, and then we open the show tomorrow night. So we're teching during the day leading into the show.
So when was your last day of rehearsals that you attended?
Tuesday, last week.
Did you make any changes?
Very subtle changes, because it was the first time that we had not been rehearsing the space in which we were performing in. So we made very subtle changes. And it was the first time we were actually able to have everything, all the props and everything, especially because we were able to finally bring in the MREs, which if the viewers do come see the show, they're able to watch Dustin, who plays Larkin, eat 2 MREs on stage for most of the show.
So we were able to say that again, because I'm not catching it. And I'm
So during the show, Dustin, who plays Larkin, eats 2 MREs, which are meal ready emergency kits that are used
Understood.
Military.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
So that is what he's eating throughout the show, and so we were able to work and fix the timing as rehearsal to make sure that was set of when's he eating, when's he not eating, what is the important point for him to be speaking to me and not have food in his mouth constantly.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, you said something. I forgot that you were actually performing in this as well.
I am performing in this. Yeah.
Okay, we'll unpack that. I'm not going to get into it. Well, no, I take it back.
That's okay.
Oh gosh darn it. I don't want to get sidetracked, but we've already brought up. How has it been removing yourself as a playwright and an actress in the piece? And not to mention that, how do you remove yourself from the playwright when somebody else is directing? And that's not my intention. You've got 3 different hats you're wearing. So
I think for me, it's really director dependent. This is the second time I've done this show specifically with this director, and I've worked with this director on several other projects. And so it's great because we can we're working off of a script from last year as well as redoing it for this year. But it's fun because we're in the rehearsal room. We're wait, that line doesn't hit the way it did last year. Do you want to keep this? And then we'll be you know what? I think we want to cut it. So it's really fun to be able to have the good meshing of the director to be okay, when am I the playwright in this moment, and where am I the actor playing this role? And so I think it's really nice to be able to be okay, we can cut here. We can get rid of this. We can make these changes in the room, versus it's so different when you're writing. And this is a play I've been working on since 2022, where it originally was a half-hour piece. Sure. And then over the past couple of years, it's transitioned to being 75/90 minutes now. So it's had a transition period where there's still a world in which the 25-minute half-hour piece lives, but it's been expanded. So every time I feel we put the larger piece on its feet, it's okay, we're still kind of workshopping in a way and finding its right rhythm and figuring out, okay, what is the most important thing for this character to be saying? Is he speaking too much right now? Is she speaking too much right now? Okay, where can we go cutting wise? Does something need to be added?
Was the original intention to make it longer? Or did you, when you originally wrote it, was it it's 30 minutes?
I originally wrote it just to be like 25, 30 minutes, and then I was asked to make it longer. I really always thought, okay, what is the world outside this piece? Because this piece does take place in like post-apocalyptic America,
Okay.
especially in the upper, in like the UP and the Upper Peninsula between like Wisconsin and Michigan.
Sure.
And so really the expansion of the piece was like, great, we have these two characters. They have this relationship. It's their first time really being together. This is an introduction. They're in a bomb shelter. What does the outside world look like? What are the questions that this character that I play, Diana, has for this other character who's a soldier still at this time? Like, what does he know? What does she know? How can we expand on that? So originally I never set out to like really expand on it. It was something that was asked of me for a playwriting program I was in.
Okay. What was that process like?
It
Delving
was
in
fun.
and unpacking that, and then like, oh, okay.
It was
You know,
really fun because
did
I
you,
was able to overwrite in a way. And I was
oh,
like, okay, what
okay.
does the
That's
expansion look
interesting.
like? Yeah, this is something I have a tendency to overdo where I like to overwrite and then go back and do a lot of cutting
Right.
of what is unnecessary.
Common theme in
Yeah.
these episodes, but now you're embracing the overwriting. So
Yes, because
I
it's
want
like,
to curious.
yeah, it's almost like in a way, when I went back and I was like, how do I expand this world? I almost wrote it as like a novel, like, but
Okay.
still as a
Sure.
play where
Sure.
I was
Sure.
like,
Sure.
I had like all these thoughts and feelings of these characters. I had this whole world developed of like what exactly happened that led
Mhm.
to like this moment where it's no surprise because it's post-apocalyptic America in this play. This is just all made up, where the US has like hydrogen bombs dropped and all these things, and it's a war over water. That's the whole
Mhm.
point of the play, is that
Interesting.
US is the third largest nation with fresh water in the world. That's going to become a problem in a few years, especially with the rise of data centers. It's getting hotter with climate change.
Right.
So I was able to really dive into like what was the before, what happened, what caused this, where are we now in terms of this world, how much does each character know? And so it was really fun to just like overwrite. I mean, I think the original overwriting was maybe like 90 to 100 pages for like a 75 90-minute play, which doesn't seem that insane, but it is when you're not writing it in like a typical playwriting format until you actually got into the meat of it, where I felt was good to be in a place.
Sure. With all that subject matter, now I'm curious is
Yeah.
why keep it to a two-hander? Like, because with all the information you're giving there, I imagine there's a bunch of bureaucracy and
Yeah.
government and all of the stuff that would go behind this. I'm just curious why, or was it difficult to keep it narrowed down to have these two characters deliver all this information, or as much I
Yeah,
hate
I
the
would say,
term,
yeah.
exposition, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a realm in like my mind where I'm like, I almost wonder if like I love that it's a two-hander
Sure.
because we learn with like the with Diana what happened. It's like the audience is discovering as she is discovering. And so she's finding out from someone who's very involved in like you said, the bureaucracy, like the old regime, even though there really is like not a US government at this point. It's all like
Sure.
small provinces and military bases.
Right.
So like there is a world that I almost wonder, I'm like, is there a two-parter to this play? Is it a part of a cycle in a way? Kind of like, like the Kentucky cycle is like all internet connected, like plays together. Where I'm like, oh, what happens like once they do leave the bomb shelter and go out into the outside world? But the whole point is that they're supposed to be trapped in the bomb shelter together, where it's this woman's bomb shelter. She finds a soldier outside, sees that he's badly wounded after a chemical attack, decides, you know what, damn it, I'm going to bring him in and take care of him and save a life if I can. And that's where we end. That's where the play begins.
So I want to talk about the transitional from going from 30 minutes to where you're at now, and what that process was, and how the whole entire journey. And did it change? This is where you were. This was the original intention, and now it's grown. And did the story change? How did you work through it? As far as like sitting down and saying, okay, well, I've got this and I've got these. Let's hypothetically, I've got these 2 scenes, these 3 scenes. Now I've got 8 scenes. This doesn't make any sense anymore. Were there internal conflicts within your writing where it's like, now I don't know what to do?
Definitely.
Curious.
For sure.
And was that your decision or was that an external influence that I'm throwing a lot at you right now? I'm so sorry.
No, this is all great. I would say to go off your first question of kind of like, how did it work between going from the half hour, going to 75-minute 90, where I wanted to keep the ending in the beginning. I knew that is exactly where I wanted to start, in this exact same way where I wanted to end, where this is also a type of play where there is no scenes. There are no scene changes. It's continuous.
Okay.
So that's great and bad when you're rewriting, because then you have like these like, beat points. As you know, like you have like this beat change for this character, this beat change, like, okay, she leaves off stage, you go here. Oh, he does something that's very bad. That's a change in the story. Okay, now like, in a 25-minute, 30-page thing, you're like, okay, about page 20, that's when things start going really badly. Sure. Can't do that when it becomes like the 75-minute, 90-minute versions. You're like, how do I keep building it in a way that does not drag? Right. But still like, I'm trying to develop like this relationship between these 2 characters, still trying to, let one of the characters be revealing other things to this other character, and what secrets are both of them hiding. So that was, I think, the most difficult part was, how do I like release the bindings of this play? Sure. Even though I'm starting at the beginning, same ending. And how am I able to like really make it punchy and make it feel like it's not dragging compared to like the half-hour version? Right. And then on your second point, I would say definitely external. There was definitely some external help of when I was like really going through, when I found out last year the play got picked up by the Tank. I was like, all right, this needs a little bit of help. So the director, who's still with me now, Sean Prasso, we like went through, we're like, okay, what really is important to the story? What is something that like, maybe if you decide to do a much longer version where it's more expanded, can we just leave out for now?
Sure.
Yeah.
And how did that work? Leaving out things were, and where was that internally for you? Where it's like,
I think it was, go ahead.
No, I think I think we're on the same page. It's like no, I need that. You know how it goes. It's like no, that's important, but is it?
Yeah.
How we are as playwrights. It's like no, that's really important. Well, why? Not even playwrights. Anyway, like you don't understand. And you justify things, and then you realize. And did you have?
It's not important.
Did you have that? I hate to use these words all the time. Journey. Did you have that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There were some parts of it where I was like, no, this character needs this like 1.5 page like monologue. They don't need that. They don't need to go into such descriptors of like the world to a point where it's almost a novel. Like there were definitely, I would say definitely some kill your darlings in this case.
So how did you give in, for lack of a better phrase, or how did you the other person win? How were you convinced? And then how did you just say, you're right?
I think there is no like winner or loser. I think it also helps that I like being an actor and being like an actor first, who then became like a playwright, where I just kind of like stumbled into playwriting.
Sure.
It was never something that I sought to do. It was just a program that I was asked to join. So I think that, as an actor, you're used to like rejection. You're used to a lot of like stuff like not going your way. And you're also used to like having to deal with like directors, not this director. I love this director. I've worked with him many times.
Sure.
Where you're like, okay, no, you're doing all this wrong with this line. You're saying this line incorrectly. It needs to be like this. No, your emotion needs to be like this. And it's like, you really have to like, as an actor, I think it really helps sometimes to, playwright, because I'm able to like go out and say all these words the way I know that they need to be said. Because again, I wrote it. But it means I feel like I'm sometimes more connected emotionally that way because I wrote it as an actor saying them out loud. So I would sometimes read them with the director like we did like a first reading of just us two reading it. And so we were able to be like, this is too much here. You need to go back and fix it. Or he'd be like, I'm going to tell you right now, you need to cut this and this and this. I'd be like, I don't know. He's like, think on it. And I'd see that he's right. But then there'd also be parts of like, we would come up with like a passage together that would like need to be cut down, and we'd read it and be like, no, that's incorrect. And so I would go back and like figure out how it actually needed to be like said by a specific character. So I feel like sometimes I was like, oh God, I really don't want to cut this. This feels so important. But in the end, like there were more important things that need to be said by certain characters than not.
Has everything that you've written been for yourself?
No, I would say
just curious.
Yeah, I would say
we were talking like, yeah.
I mean, I never set out that way where I was just kind of like, I randomly woke up one day, wrote a short story. I was doing a play with a director up at Riverside Theater, and he's like, hey, I have a playwriting program. So you ever written anything? I was like, yeah, it's funny. I actually wrote a random short story out of nowhere one day. Sent it to him. He's like, great, I want you to join. And he was like, I want you to write about certain subjects, half-hour play, go off and do it. And I was like, okay, sure, great. And it was the half hour of this play.
Okay.
And I never intended for myself to play it. Actually, the very first time that it went up, one of my dear friends played the lead character of Diana in Vancouver, and we put up in the Vancouver Fringe Fest, and I directed it. But it's
the
honestly
original version of
the 30-minute version. So I did not act in the original version, but I have acted in this in the years past in New York when it's gone up in New York. And like sometimes there is like two plays that I think I wrote specifically for myself. I would not say that this is one of them. But there are a bunch of like other smaller, like short plays or like a couple longer plays. I'm like, you know what? I might do the first iteration of this, but I think I know someone who would be even better for this kind of a thing.
Okay. So how much has changed? The addition of all these extra I'm going to say scenes, even though it's
I know it's okay.
Maybe we'll say pages.
Sure.
And then did anything change from the original? Like, just to go back to what the original question was, that, hey, this is,
Yes, I would say.
And then,
go ahead.
Yeah, what'd you have to give up? So
I was just, okay, first I would say like some additions that really added color. So like there are characters that are talked about, but we never see. They're off stage, they're in a different world. And so in this version, I was able to add like a lot of relationship to these characters and where they stand in the world, even though we never see them. They're talked about throughout the whole play, but then we like discover more. In the same way that like you learn eventually, like towards the end of the play, like there's a huge twist of like who this soldier actually is. Maybe he actually sought out this person all along. And so I was able to really like deep dive like into that relationship, where it felt like before, like it was kind of more give take between the two characters, where now it's like it feels like sometimes like one character's driving more until we hit like the climax, and all of a sudden the other character takes over completely and drives everything else. Where before it felt like it was more just like, okay, I'm driving, you're driving, I'm driving, you're driving. No, I'm driving. Okay, I'm driving. No, I'm driving again. Versus I'm like, okay, this character is, thinks that she definitely has control. Oh, definitely not the case here. This character actually has control now. Yeah.
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Yeah.
With me. Do you find, because usually in past episodes or just in general, it's always the common theme of show don't tell. Was there difficulty in bringing characters in you never meet in these moments? That do you find that it would have been better served had you seen it? rather than just telling the audience this is what happened.
Yeah, I think.
I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way. I'm just curious.
No. I think for this case, it's so situationally specific about why you never see the other character.
Right.
Like the whole point is that, like, you know, we're 3 years into this big explosion in the US, like all this stuff, like there's no government anymore, everyone's kind of their own, there's scavenger run villages, there's no water, no food to be had. And the main character, Diana, I mean, it's a two-hander, they're both main characters, but the female character, or female feminine presenting character, her whole family's dead. She's entirely alone. And then we learn that one of them is actually still alive. And there's a very specific reason of why we don't see her, because she's not allowed to leave where she is.
Copy. All right.
Yeah. So I think that, I would say that this is funny because there's another play that I'm currently going back and rewriting right now, where I am actually having to work on, do I show this person? Do I not show this person? Is this person shown off stage? Where it feels like this one, it lives entirely in a two-hander world where it's like, I do have to tell. I can't show, because the minute I show, that opens up a whole other can of worms in the play. That would open up a lot of things and would open up like a lot of development, and we would see a lot of new people instead of just two people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Outside of the length, what's changed in the two different versions? Like, again, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but did the story itself change when you made it longer? What do you, or better yet, let me ask you this. This is the better question. What did you add in the middle? Because you said you had the beginning, you had the end.
Yeah. The middle, what I was able to add was the development of the outside world, of what actually happened. How did we get here? How did the US arrive here? What happened? No one really knows. There is no government telling you what's going on, what's happening. Everyone's just kind of, you know, there's no cell phones at this point. There's no internet. There's nothing. There's barely electricity. There's no water for the most part. There's no access to real food. There's no hospital. There's no healthcare. Every single person is in the dark. And so I was like, okay, the audience is in the dark. Diana's in the dark, who's the female character. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to let them not be so in the dark about what's happened, what's been going on. And on top of like being able to develop that, I've been able to like develop like adding to Larkin some more humanity that we see. So I think that was the biggest changes I was able to add. And I was also able to like, you know, had some thoughts when I was originally writing like the half-hour version. I was like, oh, this would be interesting. Oh, this would be fun to like, you know, kind of throw in. I was able to actually do that. Or there's this whole bit we later learn of like closer to the end of the play about like how much better these military bases are doing, that they're not letting anyone know, that they're hoarding everything. And so I was able to like really delve into that.
Sure.
Versus before it was kind of like, I did not mention anything that really happened in the world. It was just two people in a bomb shelter, you know, maybe figuring things out. One is trying to heal after an attack. And then we learned some really dark things that are happening on these bases. And then the play ends. Versus I was able to really go into like what is actually happening in the world.
Why the specific location? Just out of curiosity, I'm just, you know.
I think
changed if you set it somewhere else.
I think it just always had to be in a bomb shelter. I've always been really fascinated about like Cold War era, like you know, how people thought like in the 50s here during the Cold War of like, oh, we're gonna get like destroyed by Russia. We need to build bomb shelters. Like people would build like personal bomb shelters. And that was always really fascinating to me because that's not something we do here now. It's totally, I feel like, engrossed in that time period. That's not when the play takes place, but I was really interested in what does that look like? Mm-hmm. And what happens to these old bomb shelters that are kind of left around? Are they like passed down to families? And in this case it was, where it was, you know, built on a family property that she grew up on. Bad things happen. Great. She has this bomb shelter. U.S. is no more. I'm going to live here, versus because I was able to do that specifically, I was able to keep it like very small cast wise.
Sure.
Versus if I had thoughts of like, okay, what if like halfway through the play, you know, we keep the original length. What if the play actually is the original length and then we change locations to the military base and either go back in time to before the soldier arrived, or if we develop what is happening after with this character. So I think the location was just dependent on like, I really was just like, you know what, I feel really sure about keeping these characters in the bomb shelter the entire time with no scene changes, anything like that, because specifically I was fascinated about what happens to two people when they're physically locked in one singular room, 35 stories underground.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's the not difference. I mean, that's the whole thing with playwriting is like you want to keep it single location. Not that you have to. You definitely don't have to. Don't get me wrong, but
no.
You know, I mean, did you consider production values in that regard, or was that just really this is the story, this is where it's at? I
would say when I wrote the original half hour version, I was considering that. I was like, you know what? I think I just want to keep it one singular scene versus like the play that I'm like rewriting and like having to work on killing my darlings. There is constant scene changes, and that world is constantly changing all the time right now. Versus this, I was like, I think want to keep it one scene, one location, especially because a bomb shelter is so specific location wise and like kind of looks wise and what's in it. And so I really wanted to like keep in that world and not have to worry about what is like, where they go. Are they going to go somewhere else? Are we going to see like how bad the outside looks? Or are we going to go see like the military base? I don't know. There was, again, just like, I really was just so fascinated by the idea of like 1950s style bomb shelters and what those would look like.
What's the difference, or what's changed, if you will, from you not being in it, the original version, and now performing in it?
Yes.
Was there any influence that was like, oh, now that I'm in it as as an actress, being the playwright, opposed to I watched it? What's the phrasing? I want to, because you're observing it from an outside eye, and now you're in it. And is there any influence, and did that help, or did that kind of throw monkey wrenches in being in it and say, no?
I think it's interesting because I directed it the very first time. I think it'd be very different if I was just the playwright.
Sure.
The very first time, I was just like an outside like objector besides being my words and like being my story and like my IP. But because like I directed for the first time, and then my writing program was like, okay, great, you did this at this other festival. You have to come do it here for us, and we want you to do it. So it was kind of like, you have to do this as the actor as well. So it wasn't a choice.
Same guy you mentioned earlier. I'm sorry not to interrupt.
Different, totally different. This is a part of my the different directors where when I joined this playwriting group, they're like, great, you're an actor, you're gonna act your own work. And I was like, okay, great.
Interesting. Huh.
Very interesting. I've never come across that ever. And so for me, I feel like when I go into it, because when I wrote it, I had very clear intentions to myself, not written in the play whatsoever, of what I wanted the character to be feeling in this moment. But it's also interesting because there were certain things that I wrote before that I did last year when I was in the play as well, and I was performing in it, that changed for me, where all of a sudden I was like, wait, what if I think about it this way? Where it's like, I feel like last year when I originally did it, it was more so still playwright and actor, versus I'm like, okay, just an actor, and now I'm like really getting to play and not like have to be so worried about anything else. I think that's what changed for me is now that I'm like on another couple years and iterations in it, I'm able to play more as an actor and like really be like, oh, maybe this could be a really interesting choice or like intention of what this character is actually saying versus than what I originally wrote it to be. I would say that's the difference is time and like time with the play, like as an actor versus playwright.
Did you have internal conflict removing yourself from that role? Having somebody else, having directed it the first time and having somebody take the reins?
No, I don't like directing. I don't like directing at all. So that was fine with me. I was like, great. Somebody else can direct it. Amazing. Great.
Why not give it up the first time?
I mostly did it because it was the first iteration and we were doing this play in Vancouver and she was like, can you also direct it? And I was like, sure.
Okay.
Happy to do it. Okay. Really great. Love working with you guys. And so I was more than happy to be like, okay, I would love for somebody else to do this because I love playwriting. I love acting. I don't love myself as a director so much as I do those other things. So I just prefer playwriting and acting so much more. So I was more than happy to be like, great, here are the reins. You can direct it. You can tell me if where I'm going on stage is incorrect. Amazing. Great. You don't like the intention I have behind that word? Great to me. I can change that.
So really, because when we first started, you said you had stumbled into it. So was stumbling really that person saying, I mean, have you ever written anything? And is that really what the impetus was? Where it's like, yeah, I have. I've read this short story, and is that the catalyst?
I would say a bit. And then like I'm in the theater company part of Bluebird during the pandemic. They're like, too, by the way. Yeah, we like we're making like almost not making people, but people were more than welcome to like share things they've written. And with one of my friends, we wrote like a short play together, just like on Zoom. It's like I feel like Zoom theater is very different than like writing.
I want to get into that as well.
So, yeah, where we wrote like a couple of like Zoom plays together, and then I kind of wrote one, and then I wrote a pilot with her as well. But that was the first time I had written by myself because I never really after that time because I was like, yeah, it was just a pandemic passing of time. It felt like.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's basically
it. The person who, have you ever written anything? And you said, I just wrote the story. Was that pre or post? I don't even want to.
Post. Yeah, I would say it was post pandemic. It was like 20.
But you had already written some virtual.
Yeah, but not by myself. It was not like I had sat down to like write a play by myself versus I was doing it with like some other people. And I was just kind of like, what? It's something to do during the pandemic. I've read so many books. I feel like I've watched everything on TV at this point. I'm a little crazy. I'm sitting in my apartment in New York. I just need to do something. And that was like something just like a little bit to do. And I took it seriously with them, but I did not take it seriously with myself as like, oh, this is something that I actually really enjoy. And it wasn't until I wrote this play that I was like, oh, I really like this, especially when I'm writing about things that I'm really passionate about.
Sure.
Or like worlds that I've really developed. And that was something that I love, where I love the world building of a piece. And I was like, oh, I really enjoy this. And then I just kind of kept writing consistently. And that's kind of where I've been at for like the past 4 years is I, did this play, had my other play, Colorado, which is currently being developed at Bluebird. I've currently gotten on the rewriting stage. And it's kind of those things where with this play was literally the catalyst for me being like, oh, maybe I do want to be a playwright. Maybe I love playwriting. I love it because I was always such a big play reader too. Sure. Where like in college, I would take every play reading class I possibly could, or like any class that had to do with like delving into any sort of text. Like I took like a lot of really random religious classes that were like delving into like the apocalyptic imagination, like in different like religions and like dissecting that, discussing that. Or I would take like women in religion class. I was just really fascinated about like dissecting and like different like religions, different themes, like all this stuff. And I was like, I just didn't even realize that I was kind of like really interested in like world building or what it means to like delve into things until probably this came about, where I was like, I got to do so much research and I loved it because I love researching just in the same way that I love reading. I read about like 100 books a year, somewhere in that range. I was just something where I was like, oh, if I can write about things that are like, you know, not a kitchen sink drama, which I love watching kitchen sink drama. I love reading about them, but it wasn't something I was interested in writing. I was like, okay, I'm going to write about post-apocalyptic America, you know, delving into the worlds of like Octavia E. Butler, like Parable of the Sower, or of like The Handmaid's Tale, or things like that. I was like, what does that look like? Right. What's another version of that world?
There was something else I was going to ask you based on where you were going with that, and then I wrote some things down, and now I've lost where the original one goes.
That's okay.
So, as a playwright, influences? Who are your influencers?
Playwright-wise? Oh my God, I feel like I have so many that I gravitate to. It really, I feel like it always changes, where I really like, I'm blanking on every single playwright that I love. This happens every single time. Like, it's anytime people ask me, what are your favorite books? I'm like, I don't know. I can't remember anymore. I'm going to name off plays, and that's how I'm going to do it.
For somebody who reads 80 to 100 books a year.
Where like, if I don't keep track of like everything I've like read, I won't remember.
Well, if you've ever watched an episode of this podcast, there's always a moment where you get put on the spot. Where you're like,
that's this moment. That's exactly it. Where, okay, I'd say big influences: Silent Sky, Ada and the Engine. I think that's one of my favorite plays. Kentucky Cycle, How I Learned to Drive, fantastic. Honestly, weirdly enough, the play version of To Kill a Mockingbird, I think that was so. Because I loved that book growing up, and I was really fascinated. I guess I saw it a few times on Broadway, how they translated, like, you know, from book and screen to how they put it down to a play, and what they like kept, what they didn't, what they realized was important.
Sure.
Like we were discussing, like they had to boil everything down and keep everything there. So I loved that one. But there's also this play that I really was obsessed with when I was younger that I still love, called The Deer and the Antelope play. It's by Mark. I can't remember his last name. It was a really interesting story about like four generations of women and what their lives were like. And like, you know, there was a vehicular manslaughter, and I was really interested in like, you know, what are like the big things happening in each play, but also like, what are the mundane things? And I feel like the same thing with how I read books, and when I'm gravitating towards like playwrights, I feel like it's really expansive and not like specific to like one specific like playwriting genre.
Sure. Well, in the realm of dystopian.
Yeah.
So does that mean you're a big fan of Endgame and Godot?
Yes. Yeah.
You hesitated. That's
yeah,
a judgment call.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I'm like, yeah, I do say Godot. Yeah. I just like, I like settings that are not natural to plays, if that makes sense.
Okay, sure.
Like same, like, I like things that you're like, okay, or things that like slowly become like less natural, but not in a way that becomes absurdist, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Another play I forgot to mention was The Welkin. That was I saw that a few years ago, and I blew me away. And I think that play had one of the greatest beginnings of a play I've ever seen. That was like extreme shock value, but not in a way that was not serving the story. That was fabulous. I think I've talked to The Welkin to every person I've ever met, and I'm like, why isn't this on Broadway? To this day, still years later.
It's not too late.
Yes. But going back to the dystopian, I do enjoy it because I think I grew up also with a father who was in the Cold War. So I grew up with like a lot of learning about, I would say, like almost American possibility dystopian settings. Like I feel like it very much like influenced like this play, how I thought, or like, this is so funny. Where like when the pandemic happened, I wasn't with my parents, but my mom calls me one day and she's like, your father ordered 200 MREs. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah,
Ordered 200 what? He ordered 200
MREs. Many, the MREs, which are the quick like meal kits that you eat in the military. She's like, that's.
Yep. Understood. Yep. You brought it up earlier.
So I would say like that had like influences.
Sure.
And this play was also like somewhat a little bit like my upbringing. Because I feel like obviously I'm not from the generation of the Cold War, but I grew up with parents of that generation.
Twilight Zone?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Lots of Twilight Zone. Lots of, I would say,
that's a great,
a lot of documentaries on the Cold War and like war in general, especially like World War I. And that has influences this too, especially with a lot of discussion about like no man's land and like chemical warfare, because technically chemical warfare is outlawed. Technically.
Sure. I guess
Is
so.
it? No. Like technically, did we ever really truly sign all the articles of the Geneva Convention of the U.S.? No.
Or the Nuremberg.
No. There's a lot of things that in the American mind we are thought to have done, but actually have not done. And so like, I was just really interested in like, what does, like, it's the same way of like Lord of the Rings became about because of World War I. Because of this terrible thing that these men went through, that J.R.R. Tolkien said, I need to write about this in a way that I can understand, in a way that makes sense to me. And that's how we ended up with like one of the greatest series in existence, like the basis for all of our fantasy in the modern day is based on because of like desolate warfare. And that's like not comparing myself ever to Tolkien. I can't not do that. That's beyond it. But just saying like, that's kind of where my thought process came from is, you know, especially like post-pandemic when everything was kind of barren. Because sometimes I feel like we forget as a society how bad things were mentally for Americans or people around the world in 2020 and how barren and desolate everything became.
I remembered a little bit ago, but it's a good transition because you kind of touch on it again. When you did your Zoom plays, did you write them as if they were for the stage, or did you actually take a television approach, if you will? Like hypothetically, if you took one of your virtual plays and put it on stage, would anything change? And if they were written for Zoom specifically or virtually, how did that affect your stage playwriting? What did you learn?
I feel like almost totally separate, even from like, I would say like TV film writing, like from writing like, you know, script to screen, because you're like, okay, I have these characters that need to do noises, but you're also dealing with Zoom. You can't scream over Zoom. You can't do certain things over Zoom. You can't hug a person over Zoom. You can't show, like, you can't, there's so many things. Yeah.
I had a friend who actually he wrote Zoom plays as if they were in the same room and they leaned in as if they were in the same space. So, but
that's good directing to get your boxes lined up.
I guess.
That was totally
I don't know.
different.
I'm not quite sure it worked. I'm just saying that you could do it. I'm just saying
you absolutely could. But I think those were written as being specifically, this is a play written to be online, written for people to be in boxes, or we would write scenarios so that they would all have to be there on Zoom specifically for these reasons, versus it was not like I don't think I think there maybe have been like one or two of those plays that could be translated easily on stage, but there were a couple other ones that I'm like, way too specific to Zoom.
Did you find that it actually helped your stage writing?
Possibly. I mean, maybe in a weird way because you had to be so specific about everything. But I would say like the thing that maybe the most like being able to be specific about like stage writing and like writing for the stage was like being an Atlantic actor, because you have to, when you're like in your first year Atlantic, you have to do like practical aesthetics, and it is very specific of how they want you to break down a scene, break down beats. You have 4 different things you have to do. You have to know your who, what, why, and then your action. And I would say that really helped with that, because you would have to like stage scenes yourself, obviously in acting school, but you'd have to be very specific to like to your actions the whole time.
Sure.
And then go into scenes. I would say that was probably the most helpful in a way, but Zoom also was good because you could be like, all right, this person needs to do this gesture specifically to the how like we need it to be seen over Zoom too. So I'm sure that helped.
Do you think that kind of throws, maybe this isn't a fair question, do you think it throws subtext out the window where you have to be kind of specific, where it's like, you know?
Yeah, I 100%
you know what I mean?
believe that. I bet some people, some playwrights are during Zoom, the Zoom playwriting era, were fantastic about subtext. I think that's very difficult to do subtextually over Zoom, because blink and you'll miss it in a way that's different in theater. Yeah. So I felt like for myself, subtext out the window, non-existent.
Oh my God, why am I drawing a blank on it? Significant.
Okay.
I was going to say significant others, which I know that's not to significant contacts. Is this part of a festival?
I don't believe so. So it's with Makers Ensemble, and they recently moved to a new space. So like they have like their own theater, and so it's a bunch of shows always going on at once, kind of a thing.
Right. Okay.
Not a specific festival, but last year it was with the Tank.
Okay. So how did you get into this? How did you get into the makerspace with this particular piece?
So that's actually really funny. I submitted with a different piece with Colorado. Colorado is unfortunately going.
Oh my God, it's Colorado. And that's embarrassing. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. Everyone says Colorado. Every single person says Colorado. I'm like, it's Colorado. It's a feminine ending. I promise I wrote it that way.
Should have corrected me right on.
And it happens every time. I'm like, it's Colorado. Sorry. Where originally I submitted with Colorado. They let me know like a month and a half ago. They're like, great, we want to do it. I was like, I submitted this months and months ago, but it was like in a place that I thought it was in a great place. And then I went through this program where I was like, oh my God, it needs so much rewriting. So it's currently being written. I got back to him being like, hey, so Colorado actually needs a lot more work. What about this play that I have been kind of doing for a few years? You know, last year, What Up at the Tank, like for 75-minute version. I'd love to bring it back. And they're like, great, looks awesome. Cool, you can do that. I was like, okay, great. And that's why I ended up doing Significant Contacts with Makers Ensemble. Is I was like, I have a play that is currently not quite ready.
Okay. So you submitted Colorado.
Yeah.
They liked it enough to accept it.
Yep.
But you didn't feel that it was a good place, even though they said yes. You were saying no. Okay.
Yes.
So
and then they said,
"Did they agree?"
I was like, no. They literally in the same email, shot in the dark, said, hey, happy to do it, but actually it's going through a lot of rewrites currently. And also it's a huge like time difference that I've only had a month to put Colorado together. Colorado is a 9-person show versus I would have to cast everybody, bring in a whole big thing versus I was like, okay, a month,
Okay.
I could do it. It'd be very stressful because it's a 2.5 hour play with 9 different characters, a lot of different scene changes, huge scene changes. It takes place in Rocky Mountain National Park. The whole journey is like a family of 5 go on a first vacation together where everything goes really, really, really wrong. But it's also really funny. So a lot of scene changes. I was like, it's kind of a little difficult to do with a month's notice versus I was like, hey, I have this play. Team is all in place when we did it last year. What do you think? And they just said, yeah, sounds great. It was a complete shot in the dark.
So in this instance with Makerspace, this wasn't just like, hey, submit a play and we'll stage it all, hands free. You had the responsibility of like doing everything.
Yeah, bringing your teams. Like
play.
They provided the space, they provide like the coverage, the housing, all that stuff.
Copy.
But you brought in all your own people, your set, everything.
What was the submission process for that? Or like, how did you stumble upon it? What was like the...
Yeah, so I mean...
Was there like, hey, what's the your vision? What's your statement? What's
absolutely.
this and that?
Yep.
And how much work? Or it's like, hey, we're looking for plays. Here you go. Let me know if you take it.
Yeah, I mean, I have been submitting to them for a few years for different, because they do other like short play festivals and things like that, where I'd submitted other short plays and things like that. I think I at one point even submitted the short version of Civic Contact to them. And they were like, oh, hey, like we've now like moved into this new space. We're like looking for a lot more like theater to do. And so I like submitted, I had of course done like, your artist statement. What is your piece about? Where does it fit into the world? What's the importance of this piece? All that stuff that we usually have to submit as playwrights, where like, you feel like you have a 15-page document where you have to submit like to all these different places all the time. And so going through that, I had to do that with Colorado. Again, this shot in the dark was doing significant contacts again this year. And like really delve into like why this play is important. What's the point of the play? Why this play would be a great fit here. Yeah.
What's your take on that? On these, well, I'm going to call them hoops.
Yeah.
For lack of a better phrase.
I mean, look, love them and hate them. It's just like, yeah, I think that they're important. There are always 10,000 submissions, I'm sure, for anything like this, for any spaces, especially when like the theater space provided for free and all this stuff, and like looking for a home for these plays, where like they're like, okay, does this play like align? Like I sometimes just think, okay, I need to look at it from the theater's perspective and think, okay, they're looking at like, I'm sure tons and tons of submissions. Not like how do I make a play set up? How do I make this almost in a way sell to them? How do I sell this idea to them, this world to them? Make it so be like, okay, this is actually very relevant to current events, especially because this play was originally written. I don't know if we got into this, especially this play. I know I'm like meandering around, but
no. Trust me, my question's been meandering around. So
I love meandering. Where I originally, and I say this in my statement, where, when I was like working on this, like before, like the real catalyst of the idea of this play is, I'm not kidding, this really happened, where I, in 2022, had commissioned a piece of art to be painted on Etsy from a Ukrainian artist.
Sure.
Get an email one day. This is back in like February. I'm doing this for Valentine's Day. Get an email one day being like, hey, I'm sure as you see, the Ukraine war has started after Russia invaded us. I will not be able to do your piece. I've just been conscripted. And I just had this thought, oh my God, what happens to artists in war? And that's a real thread that we see for a lot of things. I mean, it's crazy to think about what does happen to people who are like artists or like make their living as artists, who are conscripted to fight against like another country, an enemy, and all this stuff. basically like either they want to or against their will. What does that look like? And so like I was just like, you know, I had all these ideas. I was like, this is the catalyst, is like this woman is somehow still painting in the midst of like total country failure at this point, and is still painting in her bomb shelter and like trying to remember things from before and try to like paint them and just try to find some escape. But she will never in this time be able to be that artist again. Everything has changed. And so I make that very clear, like in my statement, especially like with this play of like, hey, this is where this started. This is the basis of it. That's where we're at. Like, countries will always be at war. There will never be world peace. That's a pipe dream. And so it just was like, what does happen to like us? Like, what if we one day woke up and no longer had the ability to be a playwright, to be a musician, to be an actor, or do all these things? What does that look like?
I will see your world peace never happening, and I will raise you theater doesn't end.
Exactly.
It's one person to perform and one person to be an audience. That's not
exactly.
Now,
That's
however, yeah.
How do you find your theater?
Sure.
How do you find your art? How do you keep that alive? How do you do all that with?
We had much less back way before you and I were probably even.
Yeah.
Specs on.
And I mean, you can even think about like they would even during World War II, we're still doing plays. Like, I mean, famously, Jean-Louis Antigone was during Nazi Germany. There's always room for art in war, but like what does happen to like people who are in that world?
Which I completely agree, and I think it's wonderful subject matter by all means. And I think that's a phenomenal story that if you haven't written, you better.
Yeah.
You know, number one, but and I'm gonna be a little I'll use the term vulgar. And forgive me for it, but fuck off. Not you. If my work speaks for itself, I don't need an artist statement. I don't need to tell you what the purpose of it is. Here's my here's my piece. Yeah. If you don't get the importance of it, that's on you. Don't waste my time. I'm sorry. And that's why I'm curious. And I'm not trying to influence you on that, on what I've just said, but I'm just curious your take and what, I mean, I'm assuming that you felt that your work had so much to say that you were willing to put that effort in, which to me, I think is completely unnecessary. I'm sorry. I just, artist statements and all of that stuff just really
it's absolutely
infuriate me.
It's crazy. Like why am I writing 15 pages about why this work is important or about like why this is anything happening? Like, what? It's a little crazy making, it feels like, but at the same time, it's unfortunately the submission world that we're in, which is frustrating.
But is that are these the people that you want staging your work? And is it better off? And we've gone through this a zillion times in past episodes, so forgive me. But again, what is it just better and easier for you to just, I'll just stage it myself. I don't need to jump through these hoops. If you don't see the significance of it, if it's not enough for you just to read what I wrote, I don't know. There just seems to be some kind of ego or like, prove to me make me feel like I'm so significant. Our place is so great that we need you show us that we need your work.
It sometimes can be very frustrating. I feel like I get very frustrated where I'm like, why am I sending so much about why my work should be worthy to you? But I keep saying at the same time, because I'm like, I also want you to do my work. And it's something I also get really frustrated at as an actor, where sometimes when submit to pieces or have my manager submit me for things, they're like, you need to write why you like acting, what this role means to you. And I'm like, what?
Is it stage or screen?
Both. I've had to do this. It's happened several times for both. And I'm like, what? I was like, you want me to talk for like, even for screen, like you want me to talk for like a minute to 2 minutes about why this is important to me, but you're just going to skip over it and watch my self-tape.
If they even watch it.
If they even watch it, I'm like, what? It's not something that is just to submission as playwrights or as like putting shows up. It's an epidemic of proving yourself.
You don't need to hear it from me, but I've said this a zillion times. And I guess this goes into playwriting. It goes into acting as well. Yeah. Stop waiting for permission to do what you want to do.
Oh yeah.
And what I mean by that, as far as, and this is what kind of got me into producing as well. When I was married, there were certain roles that my ex had wanted to do. And the first 2 plays we did was Stephen Deeds' Private Eyes and Nikki Silver's The Maiden's Prayer. And so what I tell people, like especially young actors and performers, is like, just go get the rights yourself. Cast yourself. You know people. You're in a room of actors and techies. So go get the rights. Cast yourself in this role. Go have auditions. Cast everybody else. There's your buddy who knows how to direct. There's your friend who knows how to do, lighting and design. And go rent yourself a space for a week or 2 and put it up yourself, rather than waiting for somebody to tell you that, you're not what we're looking for.
It's the whole thing of like how they used to tell you don't wait around by the phone when you used to wait around the phone for like,
exactly.
Am I getting this audition? Am I getting not versus it's so different now. Or like I feel like because I kind of fell into and fell in love with playwriting, I was like, oh, it's kind of nice. I don't have to ask anyone permission. I can just kind of like do things.
Yeah.
This is great.
Because I'm in LA. Maybe it's different where you're at, but here it's just because it's Hollywood. Yeah. There's like it's come around. There's some great theater now. But back when I moved here in 2020, oh my God, if only it was 2020, in 2000, LA theater had a terrible rap, just a terrible reputation. And what I thought was like, it's just a bunch of actors who wrote something for themselves to show off what they can do. They wrote, directed, and cast themselves. We'll just call it The Room, for instance. It's a great big Tommy Wiseau feature, so I think that's what a lot of people did. And so I think a lot of LA theater didn't get a lot of great audiences. Yeah. But that's, you mentioned space for free.
Yeah.
As a playwright, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Outside of space for free, this isn't a trick question, I'm just curious. Outside of space for, in your mind, is that enough compensation for your work to have your work staged?
I would say it's a little different because it's also with Bluebird Theatre Company, which is the theater company I'm part of, and we do a lot of we have funding and it helps. And we have a lot of backers that do help. So we're able to pay our people when we do shows. Okay. So we're able to compensate everyone. And I do think that compensation is a big discussion that is really important, especially in theater, especially with smaller theater that comes around, that happens in New York, where I feel like a lot of smaller places or other places do not compensate great. But we're able to compensate our people and who we bring in, and we compensate people ourselves. Sure. So that is a huge point of pride for us. And we even when we do reading series that are we do this series called Bluebird Salon, where we read like new works by playwrights, and we're able to compensate everyone for that. It's like our whole point is like, you know, we're all people who like start out in acting school, start this company, and it's important for people to get paid for their work and their time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Is Bluebird nonprofit?
Yes, we are nonprofit umbrella.
Okay.
So
yeah,
we're
I'm just
umbrella
curious.
other companies.
Sure, of course. Yeah, I'm just curious. It's because like I present it to the younger playwrights as well, like especially when it becomes we've had the pay to play conversation, if you will. And there's and I go back and forth, especially, and I'm sure you'll understand this as an actress and stuff like that, where it's just like, oh, I shouldn't have to pay a submission fee as a playwright, and you shouldn't work out the backs of playwrights. But then you look at film festivals that have a writing component to there, and they will they'll pay $65 to submit their piece, whether or not it's even read to begin with. Yeah. It's like, okay. All right. And then at least with the play, hopefully it's going to be produced and staged. So if it costs you hypothetically $20, let's say you pay $20 to have your play read, and it gets staged for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. That's an investment well earned. If you're paying $65 to have your screenplay hopefully read, it's not being filmed. This isn't Project Greenlight. You know what I mean?
Different. Yeah. It feels like there's more guarantee in a way with playwriting versus, on the film and TV side.
Yeah. And the reason why I asked that is because, there are those scams. And that's what I told her.
Yeah.
It's like, what would you rather have? A $500 prize, a $500 award for being chosen. That's part of the pot that you just submitted to, or a 2-week production. So I would say forgo the money aspect, but that's just.
Yeah.
What's do you guys does Bluebird, do they, or do you, I should say, do you do outside work? Do you take submissions? And if so, what's the process of that? And how can people submit?
So we do submissions mostly for our reading series. We do a few reading series a year, and it's specific to each reading series. Like we recently just did an LGBTQ Pride Night reading series of new plays that are part of the LGBTQ and by LGBTQ authors specifically. Sure. And so we did a submissions process for that. We read about 4 plays, and that was great. So we mostly do submissions that way. Mm-hmm. Right now, because we're currently in development with my play, I don't know if we're doing open submissions for pieces outside for longer pieces, but definitely for our reading series, because we kind of choose one big piece at a time that we work on. Submission wise, that we work over a few years, while also doing other smaller pieces. Like when we do our reading series, that's when we do a big call out. So we do that about 3 or 4 times a year, where we go on Instagram, or we post on Playbill being hey, we are looking for new works from Playwrights. Sure. Please submit. It costs nothing to submit, by the way. You just send us your play. It's read by our artistic director, and then she goes, great, love it. We're gonna do it. We'll read it.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
We'll bring in actors to read it. Yeah. I'm
going to put you on the spot. Does your artistic director read everything from first page to the end?
She reads pretty much everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, if it's magically a play that's 300 pages.
Oh, God. Well,
no. But she does. She will read through everything. She'll read through all the submissions, especially for when we're doing our reading series, because a lot of them are 10 to 30 minutes, or sometimes, we'll get sent a longer play and we're okay, she reads it and she's all right, we're just going to do a half-hour chunk from it, or a 20-minute chunk. So she reads everything. And I think that's a testament to her wanting to read, and also growing up in the household she did, where her mom works in publishing. It's like she grew up in that world. So reading is very involved for her.
Well, good for her. Yeah. No, I just know that, if I'm not captured in the first 5 pages, I'm going to throw, it's just wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious. So
it's like self-tape. They don't like in the first 5 seconds. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, at least you can. Well, fair enough. I guess. I don't know. So when those happen, I guess that's you said Instagram. I'm assuming that's posted on your websites as well. Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. And then before I get to my final questions, what with Colorado, what was it that made it not ready, and what changes are being made? And then what's the next step once you feel like, okay, I think it's been.
Yeah. So with Colorado, we did a reading of it last year. So we did a stage reading of it, brought in a great director for it, had a great cast for it. And so it was the first time that I was able to really get it out there. And the year before that, we had done like a small reading series of it, like pretty private and closed off. And it hadn't changed between like each year, but it was like after this like stage reading it last year, I was like, okay, I think there's got to be a lot of changes. And I got a lot of advice from our artistic director, but like when he's changed, like a lot of like thoughts and ideas from like when the director was involved in other things like that. And it was just way too long. It's like 2.5 hours. And there's like a lot that can be cut down. I think the biggest problem is because I think I was writing the main character in Colorado not as like more so secondary than verses, as it needs to be like revolving around the lead character. And that was something I was like, okay, I need to do that versus I felt like at the time when I was writing it, because it's a very personal story to me, it's based on my, like a little bit on my family and I, when we did in 2020, a big road trip to Rocky Mountain National Park and like how things kind of went wrong in a funny way. And I kind of brought that in there. And I think I was worried because I also had like many different ages of actors where I have like an actress written to me, like the grandmother role is like in their 70s. I was like, well, if I don't write this to be a great part, nobody's gonna want to do it. And same thing with like the parent roles who were like in the 40s, 50s, where I felt like I was way too worried about all the other characters versus the actual main character. And so I was like, I need to rework that. And there were a couple of characters that I kept getting advice for, like, someone would be like, you should cut this character. Like, no, you need to keep this character. And this character is very important. You should cut this character instead. And I was kind of like, okay, getting a little confusing feedback. And so I did like a process where I was like, I need to really solidify who's important in this play, when he's a cut, or like I have like this whole beginning to the second act where I'm like, I think I want to get rid of that entirely and like kind of change how the story is told. Where the character reveals something very traumatically to her family. And I was doing a lot of telling and not showing, it felt like. And I was like, that's kind of where it needs to be edited down and redone in a way. And I feel like I'm really starting to, like, now that I'm in like the great, like, fun part of rewriting where I'm like, okay, I really feel like I'm finding some places, or like I have a scene that I thought needed editing. And then the last time I met with someone to go over, they're like, do not touch the scene whatsoever. This is your best scene in the play, where I have all the characters fighting with each other over Yahtzee in this tiny camper. And she's like, that needs to be your basis in bread and butter, because you're able to like get everything across while also still doing this game at the same time. And that's the, like, where the play needs to live in, where it needs to like kind of mimic this like little bubble that you created in this scene. Yeah. And that's where I was like, I don't feel so good about doing it. Yeah, I could do it. I don't know if I'd be happy with how it's written at this point.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
How has ice skating influenced your performing and playwriting?
Oh God, I don't know if it's done anything.
It's performance, it's still performance. Come on.
Performing. I mean, yes. I mean, yeah. I mean, I still ice skate as like a person every once in a while, but I'm not doing what I once was able to do, which is like, a lot of doubles and things. I would say like, with ice skating, you have, because I was a competitive figure skater until I was about 18, you had to, put your all into a like almost 2-minute program. And then later that day or the next day, depending on your competition, you have to put your all into a 4-minute program, of which you have to hit certain things. And I think that way could help playwriting wise. We're like, you have to do these specific double jumps. You have to do this type of footwork. They need to see these different levels. You have to have certain levels in your spins to be able to hit in order to get enough points to just hopefully not be in the bottom. Because I was never a competitive figure skater that was ever going to end up in the Olympics. No, I was just hoping that I would get to show my long program that day and what it could cut. Yeah. So, I mean, it was just kind of, I taught you that there are always specific beats that you have to hit for certain things in order to be in consideration for things.
Do you think it instinctually influences what you do now?
I would say, because I had done it since I was 3 years old, it gives you a very much a perfectionist drive that you have to have. Right. Where someday things will not be going your way in the same way. I guess, sure, we'll just compare it to writing, where sometimes you're writing a scene and you're like, this is the worst crap I have ever written or read in my life. I cannot believe this is what I created today. In the same way of like, oh my God, I cannot land this specific like double flip today. I have a competition next week. What am I going to do? Kind of a thing. And how do I push through it? How do I make it better? Or like all of a sudden, like I just can't figure a way through. And eventually you just have to, unless you just decide to give up and you're like, I'm not going to this stupid competition. Screw this. I'm not doing this. And you can't necessarily do that.
Do you type faster with the semi-bionic arm?
No, I'm much slower. Especially no, and it was bad because 2 years I'll show you my wonderful scar. It's my entire,
oh my God.
It's the entirety of my upper
that is a
left
battle
arm.
wound and a half.
Oh yeah, where I have like an entire rod. I have 2 plates. I have 14 screws in my arm. And then 2 years before that, I actually had broken my right hand really badly. So I had to completely relearn how to type twice. So I feel like sometimes my typing is not traditional the way that like we were taught as like kids, where I'm like, I'm going in a different way. So yes, I would say my typing has changed because of many broken bones.
Well, I hope that made it into significant contacts.
It did not.
Oh,
we can just keep the audience guessing of why this person has a giant scar on their arm. Sure, they can make their own conclusions.
Fair enough. On that note, the last 3 things. What are you working on right now besides significant contacts? So, which opened past tense July 13th through July 16th at the Makerspace in Brooklyn. What else are you working on besides rewrites for Colorado?
So I have a couple things in the pipeline. Obviously, I'm rewriting Colorado because I've talked ad nauseum for it. So that's the hope, is that hopefully next like month or so, now that once especially civic contact is over, that I can go back and like really delve into it. And the next thing I'm working on is a movie that I got cast in as a lead that I can't really delve into, but I'm really excited. It does have to do with vampires. Love vampires. So that's really exciting because that's my other side of my career, is doing films. And I possibly have a different film coming out hopefully this year, which would be really exciting.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
And then where can people find your work?
People can find my work at AmandaMayStamm.com, or they can find me on Instagram at, again, AmandaMayStamm, same handle.
Which you kind of just answered the final question, which is, are you on the socials?
I am on the socials. I am also on TikTok, but you will mostly find me not doing work, where I'm just either traveling or I'm trying to go through my ridiculous closet where I have too much clothing, and consistently I'm always trying to get rid of clothing, but it feels like it never ends.
Fair enough. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Amanda Stamm, thanks for coming on this episode of Playwright Spotlight.
Thank you, James. This was a blast. Thank you for having me.
I had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Again, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share the show with a friend. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. And in the meantime, and until we see each other again, keep writing.